My name is Harmon Dash from our studio in New Orleans, Louisiana. Welcome to another edition of Make It Fair. Last week, the Senate just barely passed a budget resolution that paves the way for tax reform. 50 votes plus a tie-breaking vote from Vice President Mike Pence. Then this week, the House of Representatives narrowly passed the Senate's resolution, 216 votes to 212, with 20 Republicans joining all the House Democrats in opposition. The resolution is now fast-tracked for budget reconciliation, allowing passage by a simple majority in both chambers of Congress. Meaning Republicans could pass this proposal without any bipartisan support. Yes, it's the same procedural maneuver GOP leadership tried and failed with towards repeal of the Affordable Care Act, but those efforts escape passage by the skin of their teeth, and straight-up tax reform will likely be an easier sell to those few Republican holdouts. But since last week, Trump's been on a victory tour, tweeting, quote, "It's a really big deal, especially in terms of what will be the biggest tax cut in U.S. history," and repeating claims that his tax plan will be a big win for the middle class, not a big windfall for the rich. As we've come accustomed to with this president, he is, of course, wildly inaccurate. While the proposed tax cuts are indeed massive, percentage-wise, the horrors of this plan are aided by previous tax cuts that were both bigger and already proven to have weakened the middle class, their only lasting contribution to the economy, a deepening of income inequality and wealth disparity. But true to form, here's Trump seeking an attaboy for what feels like the latest in a never-ending string of departures from reality, made clear once you investigate just how many Americans will actually suffer should this budget be fully implemented. According to the unified framework released by the White House and Republican leadership, the plan intends to reduce spending by $5 trillion over 10 years to offset the loss in revenue from these tax cuts. Of course, such a proposal would have to make massive cuts to programs that assist the elderly, the sick, the disabled, and the poor. The 125 million Americans who qualify as a member of one or more of those groups would see access to affordable health care greatly compromised, as the bill aims to cut nearly $150 billion per year from Medicare and Medicaid. By the way, the segment of our population who bear the largest brunt from these cuts are our senior citizens, who greatly depend on both of these programs to manage their health care costs. In fact, 60% of all Medicaid dollars are spent on those who are in nursing homes. But across the board, these cuts will clearly deepen the economic hardships of our most vulnerable Americans. However, if you're lucky enough to not fall into any of those categories, how will you fare under this plan? Implementation of this budget shows 4/5 of the proposed tax cuts ultimately benefiting the top 1%, with the last fifth mostly being divvied up amongst the remaining top 10%. Meanwhile, all 90% of other American households will end up with an effective tax increase for the proposed 10-year period. Some may see a small, minuscule tax relief benefit of only, on average, a few $100 a year. Might sound okay if you'd qualify, unless you realize that benefit will be eaten up and then some by other measures in this plan, like the elimination of the SALT deduction, which allows filers to deduct state and local taxes off your federal income tax. Translation, an extra $1.3 trillion will be collected from you to make room for these proposed tax cuts. There's also talks about greatly reducing the amount of tax-deferred contributions you can put into a 401k account from $18,000 to $2,400 per year. Translation, your options for retirement savings would be subject to methods of higher taxation and with higher volatility than those currently offered by a 401k. There's also a plan to go after Social Security, the program all tax-paying Americans pay into to ease their retirement years. Of course, these cuts fall under the pass tax cuts now, pay for them later model, which in the history of the U.S. Congress has only made it to the tax cut part. In other words, the rich will get their tax relief now. The cuts that will go into effect will disproportionately affect the elderly, the disabled, the sick, and the poor. And the cuts that don't occur will explode the deficit. Anybody else wondering why the party that claims to be the party of fiscal responsibility is willing to disregard the fiscal future for so many Americans? Could it be to appease the wealthy donors who've threatened to put up challengers to sitting congressmen should they fail to deliver on tax reform heading into the 2018 midterms? This brings us back to the point we make time and again here at Make It Fair. Follow the money, and you'll find out who in this democracy is truly being represented by our government, and it's not the textbook definition of democracy, where all citizens have an equal voice regardless of what any one citizen has in their bank account. As always, we want to know what you think. Will Trump's tax plan benefit all Americans? Most Americans? Some Americans? A handful of Americans? Or maybe even no Americans? I mean, there's only so long wealth hoarding can benefit even those at the top, right? I think Walmart, for example, have gone into many small towns, decimated the local small business economy. At some point, they max out their profit-making opportunities and close up shop, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. In the same way Walmart is willing to give up on America where there's no one left to profit off of, the rich who'll benefit from the proposed budget will eventually run out of backs to maintain their wealth on. So, is Trump's plan one that truly puts America first, or does it only prioritize the richest Americans now, while only promising disaster for more and more of us with each passing year? You can leave your comments on our website, makeitfair.com, where you can become a member if you'd like to join us in the fight to make it fair. Also, don't forget to hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. For Make It Fair, my name is Harmon Dash. Thank you for watching.